The Seventh Supreme Book of Magical Teachings by Paracelsus. Preface. The Seventh Supreme Book of Magical Teachings is a work that defies time and convention, weaving a mosaic of ancestral wisdom and innovative perspectives. Written by one of the greatest names in the history of science and magic, this book transcends definitions, inviting the reader to explore a universe of knowledge and practices that transcend the ordinary. Chapter 1. On the Supreme Magical Teachings. I harbor no doubt that, should these writings of ours one day come to light, the knowledge of the distinguished powers enclosed in a latent state within metals, prepared with manual artifice, will come to surprise many people. They will be deemed by some as magical and supernatural superstitions, and by others, classified among abominable and idolatrous practices, as if diabolical conjurations were necessary for such preparations. They will certainly inquire, but by what work and grace does it happen that metals with inscriptions, characters, letters, and names of the same species possess such power without the intervention of a magical and diabolical potency in their preparation? I shall answer, is it possible, then, to believe that such works, if performed through the devil, could enclose within themselves so many powers and the faculty of action? Do you not imagine, then, that the Creator of nature, the God who inhabits heaven, is sufficiently powerful to confer upon metals virtues and the faculty of action in the same way he confers them upon roots, herbs, stones, and other similar things? As if the devil were stronger, more ingenious, more omnipotent, and valiant than God, the only eternal, omnipotent, and merciful one, who created, for the health and comfort of men, the aforementioned metals, herbs, roots, and other similar things that live and grow in the water and in the air, upon and beneath the earth. It is certain, moreover, and experience confirms it to us, that the change of time exerts different forces and actions, especially when certain metals are fused together and manipulated at specific epochs. This is ascertained and placed in experimental evidence in many ways. And, in truth, no one can affirm that metals are inert and lifeless. Their salts, sulfurs, and quintessences, which constitute precisely their purest reserve, possess their supreme virtue in acting upon and sustaining human life, superior to that of all simple bodies, as demonstrated by our remedies. On the other hand, if such bodies did not have life, how could they reactivate life and strength in limbs and in sick and dying bodies? This, in fact, is noted in people who have fainted or are in crisis, in people suffering from calculi, in those sick with the French disease, in dropsical patients, in epileptics, in maniacs, and in all undifferentiated sufferers, to avoid prolixity. Boldly, therefore, I affirm that metals, stones, roots, herbs, and all fruits have a life of their own, with the difference, however, that metals must be prepared and elaborated in accordance with time. Time possesses notable force and efficacy, which is confirmed, moreover, by numerous arguments that are public knowledge, which is why we do not enumerate them, for we have decided here to expose only that which is difficult or very incomprehensible and contrary to common sense, and not what is already notorious. Signs, characters, and letters also possess their force and efficacy. Therefore, if nature and the property of metals, alongside the influence of the power of heaven and the planets, and the meaning and arrangement of characters, signs, and letters harmonize and agree with the days, the time, and the hours, what could prevent a sign or metal, fashioned in the due manner, from possessing the power and faculty to operate? Why, in its time, could this not be useful to the head or that to the eyes? Why could it not be useful for renal calculi, and why, finally, not thus succor those who weaken the body at the cost of other remedies? However, Nothing must be done or manipulated without the help of the Father of medicine, Jesus Christ, the true and only physician. There are those who insist on saying that, with the exception of the cross, words and characters have no power and efficacy whatsoever, being nothing more than pure signs and figures, claiming that the Greek word odoxuvo means, in Latin, nothing other than serpent's oxidir, just as among the Germans ignis has the same meaning as ardens for the Latins. But answer me, for what reason in Switzerland, in Algovia, in Sweden, does the serpent correspond to the Greek voice of Osi, Oja, Avi, etc., although for those peoples Greek is not so widespread as to make itself heard by the serpent? Therefore, how and for what reasons do serpents understand those words, and in which academy were they taught to them, to the point of plugging their ears with their twisted tails so as not to hear them again? And why, upon hearing those words, are they immediately rendered powerless to wound or poison anyone with their pestiferous bite, while at other times it suffices that they perceive human footsteps for them to suddenly take refuge in their dens? If you answer me that this was determined by nature, I ask you then to clarify the following for me. If nature established this for serpents, why did she not do so equally for other animals? You will say, naturally, that the terror caused to serpents by the presence of man is what makes them remain motionless, producing the same effect upon them when man advances with long strides, shouting or threatening them, or making much noise. Hence you undoubtedly maintain that characters and metals enclose within themselves a secret force not contrary to nature, and that they also have nothing to do with superstition. If, still, you ponder that it is the noise produced by man upon approaching that is the cause of such effects and not the words, I will openly contradict you. If, at the due time, you write those simple words on a membrane of parchment or even on paper, displaying them afterwards to the serpent, it will become as motionless as if you had uttered them aloud. In the same way, will it not seem extraordinary nor impossible to you that a medicament can be useful to man, merely placed at the neck like a medal? Furthermore, you may observe a similar result regarding the bladder, due to cantharides. In fact, if you hold a cantharide in your hands, the urine will become bloody, notwithstanding the bladder, receptacle of the urine, being situated internally and deeply, while the hands are found on the outside and quite distant from the bladder. That there exists some power also in dead things is undeniable, which can be proved with the example of the halcyon which, if we skin it and hang it up, even desiccated, it will lose every year its old feathers to reacquire new ones of the same coloring. You will ask me in which author I learned such things and where I obtained confirmation of such phenomena. To you, the sophist opposer of divine works, I will answer, what prevents the bear, every time he feels his sight dimming due to an immoderate flow of blood, from seeking in the hives the stings of bees, until the extraction of a certain quantity of humor and blood renders it clear to him again? Who taught the deer that dittany is its remedy? Who taught the serpent and the dog that snakeweed and grass are their theriacs and purgatives? Who advised the heron to strike the seawater with its beak and utilize it, by way of a clyster? And numerous are the animals that know and employ the treatment most appropriate to their illness. Where did they learn such artifices? If you tell me they are natural instincts, I applaud you. Therefore, if nature aids the animals, with much more reason would she aid man who, made in the image of the Creator of universal things, received a brain that reasons, meditates, and takes advantage of all these things. To affirm that elements foreign to man cannot cure his evils is false, or, at least, reckless. Indeed, the sun, which generously sheds splendor and light upon us, penetrates equally into hidden things, to the point of warming caves and the most recondite places. and it cannot be denied that, in spring, even the most hidden places of the earth receive heat. Even if the sun spreads its light only upon the highest things, this is sufficient to give, in any case, strength, sap, and new life to everything that grows. Could not the renewal of nature and the influence of the planets, together with remedies extracted from metals and herbs, stones, and similar things, be effective in the internal part of bodies, as much in the hidden organs, nerves, and veins, as in the very diseases that nestle in the flesh and blood of man and manifest at any point, according to the various causes, with the passing of time? Just as molecules and accidents are varied, equally different are the treatments necessary for the quality, the peculiar time, and the days. That which is contrary to diseases, metals, for example, is different at distinct times due to preparation and usage. If leprosy is vanquished with gold, what prevents me from expelling the evil with oil based on gold, applied upon the leprosy? If to cure the Luis Gallica I rub with oil of mercury, do you doubt that this remedy is effective? However, with this warning, where one diligently observes and calculates the propitious time, there is no doubt, for without such cares, any notion would become useless. Indeed, it would not be sufficient to immerse the whole body in oil of mercury. It would also be necessary to add other remedies, contrary in some way to the virtues of mercury. Otherwise, not only the observation of time but the entire work of friction would become ineffective, and the patient would continue to suffer. It is absolutely certain that the majority of diseases that attack man originate from the superior stars and their influences, which cause them to penetrate his body. However, they do not assault him with vehemence and speed, as happens with epilepsy, immediately following a headache or a fright, but diffuse themselves little by little, imperceptibly, and manifest when they have already gained ground, like oil which, dripping drop by drop, only becomes weighable in sufficient quantity. In this way, man acquires consciousness of his own evil, having suffered a paralysis of the limbs, as through lack of appetite or aversion to drink, or even through any other effect, according to his own nature and own temperament, and according to the influence of the stars, together with any other accident originated by the attraction of the air. Of cephalalgia, varied are the headaches. Some are caused by immoderation in eating and drinking, others by exhalations or vapors that rise from ill-cooked foods and reach the head. But let us leave these things aside to occupy ourselves only with the most grave and torturous ones. Against the falling sickness or epilepsy. In this disease, one must zealously observe if the epileptic has crises every month, on the same day and at the same hour, if the crisis prolongs itself for the same space of time, if before falling the sick person vacillates a little or falls suddenly. This being observed, let the reason be sought. If he falls at determined hours, such will not happen by surprise. If, on the contrary, he falls at uncertain hours and moments, the sick person will suddenly collapse entirely. In the first case, it is fatal, especially if the patient trembles a little before the fall, as if he sensed the evil. The crisis that strikes down the patient suddenly is not the worst, it being possible to cure it. The first is natural. The second has nothing in common with nature, not altering the complexion in everyone. The first obscures and annuls the senses and the spirit, the same not happening with the second. Here is how it is possible to combat this latter one. In the first place, observe which planet dominates that hour. Pay attention in which sign and degree the moon is found. These things being known, verify the year of birth of the patient, taking the sex into account. Then initiate the treatment and, every morning, administer the following remedy to the patient. Spirit of vitriol, 5 drops. Quintessence of antimony, 5 drops. Quintessence of pearls, 3 drops. The mixture is diluted with a cup full of excellent rose water and, during the crisis, may be administered at any hour. After administering the remedy, you have at your disposal 4 hours of time. Continue the medication for 29 days, and afterwards prepare this lamina. Purest gold. When the moon occupies the 12th degree of Cancer, you shall melt the gold in a clay vessel and pour it into pure water. Observe, then, with attention when the conjunction of the 2 planets occurs. In that period of time, liquefy the gold again and add to it 4b of fine silver melted in a clay vessel, so that the mass results in half gold and half silver. Pour the fusion and beat it until the lamina has the width of a hand. Cut it to make it triangular and of the shape indicated below. Table of the planetary hour of the day. Sunday. Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn. Monday. Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun. Tuesday. Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. Wednesday. Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars. Thursday. Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury. Friday. Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter. Saturday. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus. Table of the planetary hour of the night. Sunday. Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury. Monday. Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter. Tuesday. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus. Wednesday. Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn. Thursday. Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars. Sunday, Friday. Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. Saturday. Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars. Take it, then, to the fire, leaving it incandescent, and keep it until the moon occupies the same sign it occupied before the moment of the crisis. At that hour, trace and impress the characters, the signs, and the letters as the figure above indicates, taking care, however, to finish the work within the due hour, without which it will not produce effect. Before other signs, impress in the center of the lamina the sign of the planet that dominated the hour in which the crisis manifested. The figure thus presented was prepared for Jacob's season, Aulic counselor of the Prince of Salzburg, struck by the illness in the hour of Mercury. Place the other signs as noted in the figure and, if the patient is a woman, substitute this sign for this other one. It will be necessary also to engrave the age of the patient. Jacob's season had his age represented by the cipher 34. It does not matter the hour in which the number corresponding to the age will be engraved. The essential is not to forget. Thus prepared the figure, you shall shave the hair of the patient on the top of the head, leaving him a gap of a size equal to that of the lamina, and, when you see him fall and already prostrate, make him take the aforementioned drink. Place the lamina on the shaved part of the skull, taking care that the inscription remains in contact with the shaved part. Fasten, then, the lamina with willow and put the patient in bed. With this treatment, you will be certain that the patient will no longer have a crisis, not even 30 years hence, provided that he wears the lamina upon his head. If the hair grows, it is necessary to shave it every month in the same place. Figure for the conservation of sight. Prepare a round sign of good quality and pure lead, in the hour of Venus, when the moon is found in the sign of Aries, and engrave the signs described in the figure below. In the hour of Saturn, then, when the moon is under the sign of Capricorn, prepare a copper lamina the size of the lead one. Always in the hour of Saturn, when the moon is found in the sign of Capricorn, you shall engrave upon it the signs of the figure above. This being done, keep the two until Venus comes to conjugate with Saturn, and, at the moment of this conjunction, join the two figures with the characters face to face. Put wax upon them so that they do not become damp, wrap them in silk, and place them at the neck in the hour and on the day of Mercury. This metal causes lost sight to be regained, preserves the eyes from any pain, and restores to the old the sharpness of vision of the days of youth. Against consumption or tabes or other morbid ills of the brain, the following metals, all of them previously purified, gold, copper, silver, tin. Melt and mix them together when the moon renews itself. Prepare with this mass as many coins as you wish, but once liquefied, do not take the metals to the fire again. If the planet Jupiter falls in Pisces, its abode, these characters and these signs must be engraved on the coins, on one side and the other, as in the figure below. When the moon decreases, attach to the edge of the coin a ring of fine gold, to be able to hang it not mattering at what hours this is done, provided that it be in the hour of the sun. Behold the ready metal. The power of this metal, or sigil, is admirable against the various infirmities of the brain and of the head. An extraordinary secret against paralysis. Here is a remedy of great efficacy, in all cases, for those who have had an attack of paralysis. The ancients considered, erroneously, an attack of paralysis to be incurable. For those who are struck by this terrible evil, the following ingredients are used: fine gold, lead, well cleaned and purified. Above all, after twilight, calculating according to the time of year, liquefy the gold in a new clay vessel prepared for such an end. Then, submerge the lead in the gold and pour all at once. The lead soon amalgamates with the gold. Keep the mixture. When the moon is found in the sign of Leo in the 12th degree, you shall melt again this alloy of Sol and Saturn, which will resemble kettle copper. Add at once 3 parts of copper and set aside. When the moon is in the sign of Scorpio and this reaches the 12th degree, you shall melt again the referred alloy, and, this done, you shall add 4 parts of tin, pouring at once and keeping it. Pour, however, in such a manner that it spreads considerably, but without guiding or dividing this mass. And when the sun enters the sign of Aries, which will occur on March 10th, approximately, of each year, you shall engrave on the cast coins the signs contained in the figures below. The engraving must begin and end in the hour of the sun. It may be done on any day, provided that, as we said, the sun is in Aries. You shall keep the sign duly prepared under guard. In the case of apoplexy, you must observe with attention the time, the day, and the hour of the attack in order to, in that hour, place the metal at the neck of the sick person. This is a great mystery. Contemporaneously, you shall treat the infirm with potable gold described by us, against stones and sand, with gold, silver, and lead. A sign is prepared for renal calculi in the following manner: gold, tin, silver, lead. These metals are put into a new crucible of those used by goldsmiths and melted on the day of Saturn, in the 10th antemeridian hour, with the moon waxing, adding saltpeter mixed with tartar, so that the alloy becomes ductile and easy to manipulate. In the hour of Mars, on the day of Venus, the alloy is cut and filed, giving it the shape one desires, and engraving nothing on the metal nor placing a ring, but working with the file so as not to be necessary to return it to the fire after fusion. Therefore, a greater quantity is poured in order to obtain ring and metal. From the mixture of these metals, lead and tin in the first place, originates a particularly hard, rough, and impenetrable alloy, ductile to the hammer, but difficult to divide. All this being prepared, wait until during the full moon the moon occupies the point of fraction, taking care, therefore, so that the work ends in the space of 1 hour. One begins to engrave on one of the sides of the metal, marked with the letter A, the signs contained in the figure below. The coin is kept guarded until the day of Jupiter, when the moon is in good aspect with one of the following planets: Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury. This done, one engraves on the opposite side, marked with the letter B, in the hour of Mercury, the signs presented by the figure above. The metal is placed at the neck of the patient with stones, on the day and in the hour of the moon when she is waning. The ring on which the metal is put must be of iron. During the night one may leave the coin in a glass with wine, and, by day, the patient shall drink the liquid, placing the metal again at the neck. In this way, one will effectively manage to reduce the sand and tartar in the kidneys, which is also achieved with the employment of Roman vitriol. Of the genital parts, the erection of the penis in a certain way is due to a sympathy originated by a dense flame that dilates the cavernous body spasmodically. Various causes may impede this appetite and this stimulus, some of which are natural, and, if someone were to lose virility through such causes, we should use the following remedy. On new parchment, write the words and the signs given below, and apply it around the penis. Avgelerter. You shall renew this parchment every day and shall continue for 9 days, every morning, before the sun irradiates the earth. Wrap the part that remains discovered when the foreskin has to be somewhat retracted. Leave it in loco day and night, renewing it always at dawn. You shall burn the old one that you removed and eat the ashes with a swallow of hot wine. This remedy is, at the same time, excellent and economical. He who is a carrier of such a disease may wear at the neck a plate of silver and gold on which are engraved the signs and words referred to above. In this case, The engraving shall be done before sunrise. It is the correct medication. If, however, the virility of the man was offended by artifices and poisonings, fruits of malice or of the art of perverse men, you shall take care to make, on the day and in the hour of Saturn, from a horseshoe found in the street, a trident like this one. On the point and on the handle, on the day of the sun, before the star appears, you shall engrave the due words and signs. Afterwards you shall immerse it in a river or brook so that no part of the handle appears and it is not easily found. In this way, you shall be liberated from the sortilege, and he who wished to do you harm will be afflicted by a grave disease that will not abandon him so soon. It is evident that it becomes necessary to repair these artifices in a natural way, in the same manner that Jesus Christ drove away the demon in the desert by citing verses from Holy Scripture, so that the horse may have long life. They accuse me of employing artifices or other magical works. Some time ago I declared that I wrote nothing impossible to be demonstrated, thanks to nature, to the celestial virtues and to their influences, of which we ourselves have not made experience. We shall repeat now the identical thing. If we have a horse, we shall make him more active and resistant if on a piece of lion's skin we trace, at the right time, the characters below. He will become stronger not only in relation to other horses, but also in relation to man himself, and vigor will not fail him with age, as happens to other animals. Due to the virtues of this bridle that strengthens him, the horse may be utilized for 30 or 40 years more than the normal time. The bridle must be made in the manner of a halter, so that it does not move from its place. The skin shall be tanned in a tannery at the hour of Jupiter, and, once prepared, it shall be cut by the saddler at the hour of the sun. The bridle shall then be prepared at any time. Once ready, some tin plates prepared in the following manner are added to it at the hour of Mercury. These plates are placed on the principal points of the bridle. The following plates, however, are prepared from copper, at the hour of the moon, and applied to the anterior part of the forehead and on the region of the nose. These other plates are made of silver. Furthermore, the following pieces must be of gold and prepared at the hour of Sagittarius. This bridle is placed upon the horse at the hour of Venus, observing then how much nature can assist through signs, characters, and words, provided the necessary time is observed. Ointment against wounds. Sympathy, or rather the harmony of things, is the cause of many events. This truth is verified with the usnea gathered from a human skull, leaving it exposed for some time under the sky. With it, the following remedy is prepared: usnea, human fat; mammia, human blood; linseed oil, rose oil, Armenian bowl. Pound everything in a mortar until reduced to a pure ointment, and put it in a wooden box. If a wound appears on you, stain a small wooden stick with your blood and, when it is dry, introduce it into the ointment. And, every morning, apply to the wound a new bandage soaked in the urine of the sick person. However great the wound may be, it will heal without plasters and without pain. In this manner, you will succeed in curing wounds even at a distance of 20 miles, provided you can utilize a certain quantity of the patient's blood. This remedy also favors other ailments, such as toothache, etc. Any pain will be relieved if you dip the bloodied stick into the ointment and leave it there. If a nail causes a deep wound in a horse, apply the ointment to it with the blood-stained stick and no harm will befall it. Such things, certainly, are miraculous and constitute gifts of God. Ointment for weapons. In the same way, an ointment is prepared which, when applied to the weapon with which someone has been wounded, causes the wound to heal without pain. The ointment has the same composition as the preceding one, with the addition of 4 of honey, 3 of bull fat. However, since it is not always easy to find the weapon that produced the wound, the treatment with the small stick is the best. Against podagra, primo, mumia, mastic, red myrrh, olibanum, ammoniac. After having distilled everything, prepare an oil. Reduce the lower jawbone of a horse to fine powder, and prepare an oil from it. Mix with the oil of the first formula and distill at once. Set aside. Prepare afterwards. Fine gold, silver, iron filings, lead. Melt these metals together at the hour of the new moon in a strong fire so that the iron filings, which melt slowly, may amalgamate with the other metals. It is good to add a pinch of borax so that it melts more quickly. Once everything is melted, pour onto a wide stone so that the sheet becomes very thin. Indeed, it is not easy to beat because the iron becomes not very ductile. If Saturn, then, is in conjunction with Mars at this hour, not later, engrave the following characters, words, and signs separately on the first and on the second coin. You shall then leave these coins apart, paying attention so that they do not have contact with each other. Make also a disc of pure and fine gold, not very thick, and, when Venus is in conjunction with Saturn or with Mars, engrave on both sides the characters, signs, and names as in the following figures. When Venus unites with Saturn, apply metal number 2 to the face of the upper metal, marked with number 4, and when she is in conjunction with Mars, apply the side marked number 2 beneath that designated number 5. And, when the moon has entered the 6th degree of Cancer, place the 3 referred metals in order, joining them in such a manner that the one of gold stays in the center, between the others. Make an orifice in their center, and thread an iron wire through them, traversing them together, and place them on the patient's neck. Afterwards, anoint the joints with the referred ointment. This done, direct also to sexagenarians the distinguished works of nature. Sympathetic ointment against gout. If you have bled a gout patient and applied cupping glasses to him, keep his blood without him knowing and without telling him how you will use it. Distill it about 3 times over a gentle fire or in a bain-marie. To this distilled blood, join human fat, rose oil, Venetian soap tenuously liquefied, bear fat, juice of stonecrop, bull's marrow. Mix everything in a copper frying pan. Cook slowly until it takes the consistency of a pap, and stir continuously with a wooden spoon. Every week, when the moon is at the beginning of its waxing, apply the ointment to the patient's feet, on the sore point, and spread it into the incisions, in a warm place. At the end of 7 weeks, the gout will have disappeared. This ointment, the older it is, the more effective. It will preserve its virtues intact for the space of 10 years, provided it is kept in a cool place. Pomade against paralysis. Against this infirmity, the principal remedy is oil of sulfur. Prepare it thus: sulfur pulverized very fine. Pour it into a clay vessel, on which you will place an alembic, and purify it. The sulfur that rises into the alembic, and deposits itself therein, put it in a damp cellar to dissolve. After some time it will be transformed into oil. Prepare, then, the following composition: oil of sulfur, soap of Hungary, aqua vitae, olive oil, rose oil. Cook each ingredient as in the preparation of the ointment against gout. paying attention so that the mixture does not catch fire, for it is easily flammable. Spread this pomade on the sick limbs in a dry bath for 30 consecutive days. Especially, it is very effective for paralyzed joints. Sigil against paralysis. Gold of weight equal to that of the Hungarian gold coin, which must be pure and free of any impurity and treated 3 times with antimony. Add a little borax and, when the moon traverses the 19th or the 20th degree of Capricorn, liquefy it. Once everything is melted, in the same hour add 30 grains of copper filings and pour. Keep it until the moon finds herself in the same degrees of Scorpio. Melt again and add 30 grains of iron filings. Pour again and keep it until the moon enters Leo. After that, laminate the sigil and engrave the signs. This shall be done at the hour, and the signs engraved on both sides. You shall use this sigil wrapped and sewn in a small linen cloth, and in such a manner that it does not contact any object. And it must be placed on the day and at the hour of Jupiter, when the moon is at the beginning of its waxing. The forms of the sigil are the following. For menstruation, to cure the inconstancy of menstruation, there are 2 ways, one to regularize the immoderate flow, and another to regularize the insufficient flow, without, however, forcing nature, which would provoke lethal consequences. To regularize the delay, prepare at the hour of Venus a sigil or metal of pure copper without mixture of other metals. If you cannot finish it in 1 hour, keep it to do so when a new hour of Venus returns. The format of the coin is the following. This coin must be filed in a single piece, and the woman shall wear it fastened to a thread, passed through 2 small rings of the metal, which must adhere to the back against the sacrum bone, at the end of the dorsal spine. The characters must be turned against the body. This shall be done at the hour of the moon, when she is waning or already disappeared. If the flow is more abundant than nature permits, engrave then, upon silver, the following characters. This metal must be worn wrapped in silk and fixed to the navel with the side marked by the number 10 adhering to it. If the flow delays, the metal shall be worn for 30 days, after which it shall be removed, so that the flow does not become continuous and the remedy worse than the ailment. Against leprosy. Those who are lepers from birth can hardly be succored with common remedies. We know of others, however, that may be very useful to them. It is known that leprosy may be attenuated, but not cured, with potions in which gold has been diluted. The reason is simple. Every healthy man possesses within himself a special balm. To the leper, this balm is lacking. Therefore, he cannot be considered healthy. None of his frigid organs possess such a balm, and for this reason, they do not feel the strength of the gold going to the stomach. If this organ subsequently distributes to the members a certain humor, which the gold releases and sheds of itself, this shall become equal to the balm. Therefore, the action and progress of the leprosy are hindered until the exhaustion of the gold's efficacy. Physicians cannot diagnose leprosy if, 3 days prior to the examination, the sick person has ingested gold. This is understood here regarding cases where the leprosy presents itself doubtfully and not positive cases. In cases where it presents itself uncertainly, there is no doubt that the simultaneous use of the remedy and the sign is of great aid. This sign must be large and prepared in the hour of Saturn. The characters must be engraved in the hour of the sun, when the moon and the sun enter Leo, which occurs in the month of July. The sign is placed below the leper's neck in the hour of Venus, when the moon enters its waxing phase. One may also immerse it in any liquid, which the sick person shall drink. Afterwards, the sign shall be placed on the neck again. Every year in July one must do this anew, because its power ends at the end of a year and, consequently, the leprosy would operate validly in the organism which it penetrated and where it established its seat. Against vertigo. Those who are assaulted by vertigos see the heaven and the earth spin around them. Others see vapors and flies flying before their eyes. Whoever suffers from this malady has a propensity for apoplexy and epilepsy. Vertigo results from a disorder of the brain through the action of a dense vapor from the stomach, which rises to the brain and from there descends again to the stomach through the optic nerve, thus clouding the sight more than the other senses. Against this, the following sigil is prepared: in the hour of Mars and on the day of Jupiter, with the moon being in Aries. This is the most benign aspect of Mars, and at such a moment no planet has a bad aspect against him. Melt everything together, gold, iron, silver, it being important that these metals be pure and chosen. With the hammer, reduce the obtained composition into a fine plate, attaching a hook or a small ring to it. When the moon occupies the 3rd degree of Taurus, engrave the following signs and place the metal on the neck in the hour of the full moon and at the exact moment of the mutation. To this sigil thou mayest also add this other remedy: oregano, unicorn horn, moss, spirit of vitriol. In a silver spoon, administer this composition to the sick person for 13 days, at 3 o'clock in the morning, in such a way, however, that the infirm always has an hour of rest. Against spasms. Begin by making a fusion of gold and silver, copper and iron, and flatten it with the hammer in width and length. Form a medal in the hour of Saturn, when the sun has already disappeared. Then, in the hour of Jupiter, engrave the characters, the signs, and the words. Place it on the patient in the hour of the sun, after it has disappeared below the horizon. With the referred metals, thou mayest also make a ring in which thou shalt engrave these signs, placing it immediately afterward on the left little finger. Each thing must be done in the determined time and day. Against palpitation of the heart. The human heart sometimes beats with sensitive movement, this being what we call palpitations of the heart. Palpitation is not a banal infirmity, tormenting not only the sick person with frequent syncopes, but reaching the vital roots themselves and ending in death. The evil is situated in the pericardium. Against it, study the time and prepare an appropriate sigil. In the first place, day of the moon, hour of the moon, silver 46. Put everything in a clay crucible and leave it until the hour of the sun, that is, for hours in the order of the mobile hours. At this moment, cast the silver into the fire and liquefy it. Pour in liquid 4 of good and fine gold. Mix and do not pour out. Let it cool in the crucible itself until the hour of Venus. Then melt it and join 3 of pure copper. This done, pour the liquid and, beating with a hammer, form a plate apt to receive the signs. Wait for when the moon and Venus are in good aspect, and, after the first 2 signs, engrave the Greek word panocetam. And with the new moon, engrave the 3 lower signs, as well as the 2 preceding ones that remain. Once the new moon has passed, keep it until the next new moon, when thou shalt engrave on the same side the other signs and words that the figure below, to the left, presents. This done, await the passage of the sun into Leo and engrave on the other side of the medal the characters and the signs. One must begin and finish all this in the indicated hours. Thou shalt place this medal on the bare chest of the sick person in the hour of the full moon, at the moment of the change of the moon. This metal is a powerful remedy against palpitations of the heart, just as potable gold and the quintessence of pearls prepared according to the known art. Preparation of oil of coral and yellow amber. Of coral, common salt. Pound everything together and reduce to finest powder. Place then in the alembic and coat with the following mass: common mud and clay, bones of a quadruped's head, iron filings, glass, common salt, white lead. Wet and knead everything together. Place the alembic thus coated in a retort full of sand and expose it to a slow fire, sustaining it gradually until the spirits and radiations have risen to the recipient. Then increase the fire for the evaporation of the water. This oil of coral is a distinguished and effective remedy against the referred palpitation of the heart, if employed without other additions. For bone fractures, in whatever manner the bones have been fractured or contused, once united, apply the following ointment: honey, antimonium and oil of vitriol, deer tallow, badger fat, wax, soap, turpentine, bear fat. This ointment cures miraculously if applied in a warm place, and by a warm hand to facilitate its penetration. In this way, any fracture will remain completely consolidated. Chapter 2. Of the metals of the 12 zodiacal signs and their secrets. The movement of heaven is effected in circles according to the 12 signs, which envelop heaven just as a belt envelopes a body. This belt, which is almost a road, is called the zodiac. The first sign is Aries, and the others follow in this order: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Aries. The coin of Aries is manufactured with the following metals: iron, copper, gold, copper. Melt these 4 metals together with a strong and live fire, in the hour and on the day of the sun, when the sun enters Aries, which occurs on the 10th day of March, at the moment the sun itself enters that sign. To facilitate the fusion, it is necessary that the iron be reduced to filings. The metals being melted on the day of Mars, when the moon occupies the sign of Aries, which occurs once a month between degrees 9 and 10, it is necessary, then, to engrave the sigil and place it when Mars enters on the 9th day of the celestial domicile in the 8th heaven. The characters of the coin are the following. This coin is a sure remedy against any flow that descends from the head to the nape and the back. It purges the brain and dries up the viscous liquid. Such a result is obtained if the metal is worn day and night with the sign of Aries turned toward the brain. Taurus. This sign is prepared with the following metals: copper, tin, iron, gold. These metals must be fused when the sun enters Taurus, which verifies itself every year on approximately April 8th. One must begin to engrave the coin at that very hour, without which it would produce no effect. It is possible to achieve this by preparing beforehand 2 iron matrices, upon which the signs have been engraved, so that, almost at the very instant of fusion, it may be possible to impress them upon the coin. Such a system may equally be used for other metals, for frequently the propitious hours elapse very rapidly, seeing that this is of great importance in these operations. Here is the figure. One places the coin when the moon is in the 10th degree of Taurus. By its nature and its properties, it constitutes an efficacious remedy for those whose virility has become weak. It must be placed so as to touch the navel, with the sign of Taurus facing the skin. It manifests itself effectively in both man and woman. Gemini. The coin of Gemini must be prepared with gold and silver in equal parts. It is necessary to traverse it with a short, small tube of the diameter of a duck quill. The figures of the sign having been placed in a vertical sense, one lets pass the small tube, which shall be stopped on one side with a little mastic, filling it with mercury and subsequently obturating the upper orifice as well. One performs this operation before any other, and afterwards one begins to manipulate the coin. One liquefies the gold together with the silver when the sun enters Gemini, which usually happens on the 10th or 11th of May, according to the year. In fact, this does not always happen on the same date. When the moon traverses the sign of Leo or that of Pisces, one engraves upon the metal the following signs and letters. One places the sign at the neck when the planet Mercury enters the first celestial house and the sky is pure, clear, and limpid. It must be worn with the images of Gemini in contact with the skin. The mercury must be poured into the tube in the hour and on the day of Mercury, during the waning moon. Cancer. This sign is made of pure and very fine silver of whatever size one wishes, and in the hour of the sun in the sign of Cancer, which occurs between the 10th and 12th of June. The engraving shall be done in the hour of the moon, provided that she is in good aspect with the other planets. Furthermore, the moon must be waxing, and one must begin and finish the metal in that same hour. Otherwise, it will be ineffective. One puts on the metal on the day of the moon, she being in the wane, and one keeps it always clean. It is a faithful companion to pilgrims, a sure remedy for hydropics. It is also efficacious in all affections of the body caused by excess of humors and of phlegm, viscous humors. Leo. The metal of Leo must be made with singular diligence in the month of July, when the sun enters his abode, between the 13th and 14th of this month. It is made of pure and fine gold, cast in the first degree of the same sign and in the same hour. When Jupiter is then in his own abode, that is, in Pisces, one engraves the metal on one side only, as in the figure below. The other side must be engraved when the moon is in the house of Jupiter, that is to say, in Pisces. It is necessary to operate with much caution, so as not to expose the metal to the fire again after the casting. This side must be engraved as in the figure above, to the right. It shall be placed at the neck in the hour and on the day of the sun. This sign confers good sense and judgment, and conciliates favors and benevolence, both in men and in women. It is also of great value in quartan fever, in cases of plague, in inflammations of the eyes, and in other burnings of the body, commonly called wandering or inconstant. Against burns, the metal shall be placed on the affected part, conquering the burning with success, without the application of other remedies. In this manner we cured the wife of Nicholas Scherer, our countryman, who had been struck by a quantity of metals in fusion, the burning having disappeared without other medicaments being necessary. There was neither inflammation nor suppuration, and the patient wore the metal until the end of the convalescence. Virgo. The sign of Virgo is prepared with copper, gold, silver, and tin. These metals must be melted together between the 12th and 14th of August, in the hour when the sun enters the sign of Virgo. In the same hour, immediately after the fusion, they must be reduced to a fine sheet. When Mercury is in good aspect with another planet and in his hour, one shall engrave upon the metal the following signs and names. Everything must be finished in the same hour. The sign must be placed when Mercury finds himself in the first house of the heavens and the weather is pure and serene. Indeed, this is the best. In order that the metal may operate with greater efficiency, it will be convenient to place it in the hour of Mercury. Libra. The sign of Libra is made with pure and chosen copper, liquefying it and pouring it in the hour when the sun enters Libra, that is to say, on the 12th, 13th, and 14th days of the month of September. It is necessary, however, to pay attention if Venus dominates in that year. In the affirmative case, the sigil loses its great efficacy exercised on behalf of those born under the denomination of Venus. The characters, the words, and the signs must be engraved at the moment when Venus enters Libra, and the sign must be placed in the hour of Venus, that is, close to 9 or 10 o'clock of the same day, which are dominated by Venus. This sigil is very efficacious against all feminine sorceries that strip man of his virility. It is also a protector against all diseases of the pudenda. Scorpio. The sign of Scorpio is made of pure iron, in the hour and on the day of Mars, when the sun enters Scorpio, which occurs on the 12th, 13th, and 14th days of October. One face of the sigil shall be engraved immediately, and when the sun enters Aries, the other face shall be engraved. It may be placed at any moment one desires. This sign is singularly efficacious in all poisonous diseases. It operates also, miraculously, in favor of those who wear it at the neck, such as soldiers, captains, and those who live in perpetual war and litigation. One may, furthermore, make another sigil of iron, prepared in the manner referred to above, providing always that Mars is the dominator of the year and the sun enters, in that same year, the first degree of Scorpio. Afterwards, if Mars enters his abode, that is, in Aries, one engraves as in the following figure and places it in the hour of Mars. If this sigil be hung in a house, no living scorpion will remain therein. It is also very efficacious for the bites of the scorpion, and a powerful remedy for soldiers in combat. Very useful also to lepers who wear it and who drink afterwards some solution of gold in which the sigil has been immersed. On the tail must be placed a ring of pure gold. It is put at the neck, head downwards. Also very efficacious against bedbugs, if hung at the edge of the bed. Sagittarius. One prepares the sign of Sagittarius at the moment of the entry of the sun into Sagittarius, which occurs on the 12th or 13th of November, and precisely in the first degree of the sign. It is engraved in the hour of Jupiter and placed at the neck in the same hour, with the moon waning. I discovered this sigil after long years, and I tested it according to the art. I have used it frequently to confound my enemies, who remained astounded before its power and dared not say anything more. The ring must be of silver, and the sigil entirely of tin, without the addition of other metals. It is kept and used in a state of purity. In fact, if it is worn during carnal commerce, it loses its strength and efficacy. Capricorn. This sign places us in contact with Saturn. The sign is made of gold. Lead confers no virtue whatsoever to the other metals. The ring must be of noble copper. It shall be manufactured in the hour of the entry of the sun into Capricorn, when the star is at a great distance from us, and engraved on the day of Saturn and in the hour referred to above. Afterwards, if by chance Saturn is in good aspect with the other planets, one places it at the neck during the waning moon in the same hour of the aspect, it mattering little if it be the moon or another planet. One may say, with reason, that this sigil is favorable to the plebs and cures completely lupus, an evil that attacks the legs. The ancients considered any remedy for this evil non-existent. There was, however, a remedy as sure as it was unusual. Aquarius. One fashions this sign in the month of January, when the sun enters Aquarius, with the following mixture: gold, silver, lead, iron. The sign shall be cast and engraved at the indicated hour. One engraves rapidly the signs and words in order, when the planet Saturn enters the 9th house of the heavens. It must not be placed around the neck except when the sun disappears at the horizon and, above all, the hour of Saturn must be observed. This sign will deliver one from paralysis, from cold gout, and from the tension of nerves and tendons. It preserves the memory, conciliates favors from men, and is an antidote to poisons. It constitutes also a good defense against spiders, for if we bring the sign close to them, they will rapidly move away without returning again. Pisces. The sign of Pisces is made in the month of February, when the sun enters the sign of Pisces, with the following metals: gold, silver, tin, iron, copper. It must be prepared and cast within the same hour. Afterwards, when Jupiter, of benign aspect, occupies the 8th house of the heavens, the sign is applied on the day and in the hour of Jupiter. This sign is very effective to repress and dominate the choler caused by paralysis, apoplexy, colics, and other diseases. Both in man and in woman it drives away gout, spasms, and pains of the feet. It should be placed below the navel, in such a way as to adhere to the belly. Thus ends the book of the 12 signs and of their secrets. Chapter 3. Protection and healing of animals. If Mars and Saturn are together in the heavens, take a piece of iron and make a rat with it, working it and finishing it before this union disappears and ends. Engrave upon its belly, in the hour of Jupiter, the word albamatox. Afterwards, when the moon directs herself toward Cancer, precisely almost at its 9th or 10th degree, engrave on the left side, the left flank. On the back, when the moon is full and at the same point, trace along the entire dorsal spine, up to the tail, the following characters with the hieroglyph of Venus turned toward the head. Afterwards, with pure lead, make a collar for the rat, and during the waxing moon, on the day of Saturn, in the first hour of the night, which is the first of Saturn, engrave these characters upon it. This done, put the collar on the rat when, as before, Saturn and Mars are conjoined. Place the iron rat in the middle of the house, more or less, and you will see the rats and the dormice move away. And, if some strange rat introduces itself by stealth, it will not remain more than 1 hour. If you bind a live rat with a thread to the iron rat, the former will die and swell as if it had eaten something poisonous. Flocks, oxen, horses, swine. In reality, we shall not teach only how to heal, but also how to preserve and acquire. It is necessary to observe the time when the rams die in mass, as if contaminated, to then fashion with clay a small lamb or a small sheep in the following manner. Take 3 handfuls of earth from the confines of your properties, or from your fields, and a certain quantity of sand, taken from a watercourse near the property or where the flock drinks water. Knead everything when the moon is waning, and form with this mass the figure of a sheep. Always in the hour of the waning moon, engrave in diverse points, separately on the sheep, these signs and figures. Put plenty of salt over this sheep, covering it entirely, and place it in the stable, so that the sheep may lick the entire layer of salt, becoming thus refractory to contagion, and the mortality will diminish. And those that were sick licking this salt will enter into convalescence. Such is the power of nature in this genre of things. In the same mode, Remedies may also be prepared for oxen, pigs, and other animals, however, according to the conditions, the time, and the day for each of them. If the oxen suffer from blood, as the vulgar say, this disease is for them as baneful as the distemper is for horses, which the Germans call Feisel. Against this disease one writes on a fresh egg, laid within the hour that which follows. Open the mouth of the animal and break the egg next to its tongue, paying attention so that the liquid does not spill out, impeded by the folded tongue. With this process the animal shortly will enter into convalescence. Great care, however, so that the animal does not drink water during the 12 hours that follow. One shall proceed equally with the horse attacked by the same evil. However, in place of the word ambraio use cupfamelin, and in place of the crosses place the following sign. The horse will vomit as soon as the egg has been broken next to the tongue. Give it, then, fodder with salt and vinegar, water only after 12 hours. After the ration, having eaten, he should take a walk in order to sweat, and after this he shall rest. These are the secrets of nature. Against flies. Flies, besides molesting, are noxious to food. If they bother, take a spearhead or a beam made of pure steel and prepared during the full moon. On the handle engrave these signs. From the handle to the tip trace 3 oval commas, one of which under the new moon. When there is a union between Saturn and the moon, engrave then, in the direction of the length of the blade, the following words. Bury this spear in a wall or in any other place and, around it, make a circle of clay of the diameter of a disc. The flies are attracted there and will remain until the spear is removed. If this is not done, they will fly again, tormenting anew. Chapter 4. Of the transformation of metals and of the propitious times. If you wish to transform gold into silver and vice versa, or any other metals, recur attentively to the following table, which is of great importance to reach more unhinderedly and easily the desired end. To transform gold into silver, you shall initiate the work in the hour of the moon, when she occupies the 6th degree of Cancer, provided you understand well the referred table of the transformation of metals. All earthly things, difficulties, offices, and commerce will be conducted to a good term with happiness, if the configuration of the heavens and of the planets is taken into account. In fact, as established by God, the totality of men is directed, be it in health, be it in sickness, by the power and by the work of the firmament. And, when ministering remedies, such influx is taken into account. Frequently, the simplest things exercise great virtues in dependence on the aspect of the sky. Chapter 5. Of the constellation of the mirror. This royal instrument can be prepared in any month of the year, but it is necessary to attend to the ascending sign in the heavens, observing attentively the beginning of each sign and its degree above the horizon, together with the meridional signs that occupy the middle of the heavens. It occurs, also, to observe the part of the heavens where the planet of interest is found, in the hour and on the day of the beginning or invocation of this mystery, as well as if the planet is below or above the earth and how much it must ascend on our horizon, and to know how to discern the conjunctions of the planets, and in which sign and degree the sun or the moon is found. It occurs, finally, to verify with much accuracy the phases and mutations of the moon, as well as the equinoxes, without using for the computation the rules and the table of Ptolemy, invented in the year 140 before Christ. In that epoch, the equinox fell on the 31st day of March at 2 hours and 4 minutes ante-meridium. Therefore, presently, that is, in the year of 1537, there is an interval of approximately 7 hours and 36 minutes. In the making of this admirable work, it is necessary to take into account the true equinox, and its place must be found on the ecliptic of the eighth heaven, which, by the division or repartition, I call the beginning of Aries. In reality, the first in the equinox, beginning with the ecliptic, contains 24 minutes of declination, and we have the day of the equinox. There the place of the sun is near the division of the ecliptic and of the sixth circle of the equinox in the eighth heaven. And this point is certain. Wherever the sun is situated, whether in the ascension or in the midheaven, or at the setting, there shall be the beginning of Aries and of the signs. And, once the sun is situated there, one knows clearly the hour of the day according to which one can know the beginning of Aries and of the signs, wherever they may be found in the heaven in relation to the sensible place, and, according to the ascendants in the east, they may be seen throughout the year in relation to the place of the sun. It is also necessary to take some place of the planets, according to the equality of the ecliptic. This equality of distribution in the eighth heaven was formed by me, Theophrastus. Let us pass now to the work proper. The 7 metals must contain the prescribed quantity, and, above all of them must be depurated and purified. Gold, parts or 10 half ounces. Silver, parts or 10 half ounces. Copper, parts or 5 half ounces. Tin, parts or 2 half ounces. Lead, parts or 2 half ounces. Iron, parts or 1 half ounce. Mercury, parts or 5 half ounces. Once depurated, all these metals shall be kept apart and wrapped in parchment. It concerns here a single mirror. Indeed, such a quantity of gold suffices to prepare only one, according to the drawing. These mirrors shall always be 3 in number. One of them reflects the images of men, such as thieves, enemies, and others, as well as the figures of shepherd, arms, combat, sieges. Furthermore, all things that are brought to completion are done or were done. And this is reflected in the mirror both at night and during the day. In another mirror are reflected writings, speeches, words, counsels, the place and the moment in which they are elaborated or recorded, as well as all that was decreed and concluded, together with the originating causes. But it is necessary that these things have happened or elapsed, for nothing can be descried or known regarding the future. In the third mirror, finally, shall appear what was written in letters and in books and fixed by the pen, even if secret and unknown. To conclude, by means of these 3 mirrors, man will be able to see reflected all things that are done or that were done under the horizon, whether distant or near, diurnal or nocturnal, secret or public. These mirrors are manufactured for the exclusive use of he who is to use them. No other person may utilize them, for he shall manage to see nothing. It is good to know that, to make larger mirrors, it is necessary to take a greater quantity of metal. The larger the mirror is, the more it will reflect. Indeed, on a large surface the images are reflected more clearly, be they great councils of war, battles, and other similar things. The labor for the manufacture of a smaller mirror is not inferior to that of a large mirror. The only difference consists in the smaller quantity of metal to be employed and in the lesser labor to burnish its surface. After being fused and purified, the metals must be cleaned, it being very important that each of them be purged at the hour of the corresponding planet, taking into account the good and bad aspect of the other constellations in relation to it. Gold. If the gold has been melted 3 times in antimony and then passed and depurated by Saturn, another purification is not necessary. One beats it until obtaining a very fine sheet, and leaves it in salt water for 24 hours. Afterwards, one rinses it in pure water, dries it carefully with a small linen cloth, and preserves it for use at the propitious moment. Silver. It is purified in this manner. After having been reduced to a fine sheet, it is boiled in water in which tartar and salt have been dissolved. The boiling must last 15 minutes, after which it is rinsed again in pure water, dried with a clean cloth, and preserved to be used in due time. Copper. It is immersed in water of vitriol, camphor, mixed with vinegar, for 6 or 8 hours, to be depurated. It shall afterwards be rinsed, dried, and kept. Iron. It must be filed, and these filings carefully washed, dried, and exposed to the heat of embers. Lead. Liquefy it inside an iron spoon. Add a piece of wax the size of a broad bean. Let it dissolve, and pour into pure water. Tin. Liquefy it and add tallow, wax, and honey to it, which must burn over the metal. Pour the tin into pure water, let it dry, and keep it. Mercury. Pass it 3 times through a sieve into a clean wooden vessel. The metal collected in the vessel is sufficiently pure for use, while the part that remained deposited in the sieve serves not. This done, there occurs the exact and profound knowledge of the complexion of the person for whom the mirror is manufactured, by means of the theme of birth, as we clearly demonstrated before, but not as some do, who base themselves upon the official hour of birth, but rather referring, according to the calculations, to the hour and to the moment of conception, when Almighty God destines a soul to the fetus, in the maternal womb, and this latter begins to exist. This hour and this moment can be determined according to the bases that I, Theophrastus, imposed and left exactly and truly for every man, young or old. Raising the theme of the nativity of the person, and his temperament being revealed, the knowledge of the planets and of the signs will be sufficient aid to proceed in this work. The knowledge of fortune, misfortune, death or life, or of diseases, occurs not. Only the year of birth suffices. Next, the table in which is exposed the principle of the mirror for every man, whatever his planet may be. If the person is Saturnine, the work must be initiated when the planet Saturn is in his abode, that is to say, in Aquarius, or at least when he is found in the 12th house of heaven, which is that of misfortune, of enmity, of envy, and of all evils. If the sun is found in the 5th degree of Aquarius, and the moon in the middle of Aquarius, or in the 12th degree. Take, then, the lead weighed and depurated at the same point and moment in which the moon appears at the beginning of the 12th degree of Aquarius, and take it to the fire in a clay crucible, taking care to prepare each thing in advance. As soon as it is liquefied, take the crucible from the fire, cover it carefully, and leave it aside until Saturn attains the 11th house of heaven, the moon the 19th degree, and the sun the 13th degree, always of the same sign. Have at hand the tin, previously purged and depurated, liquefy the lead that was put aside, and join the tin so that all is fused together. During the fusion, stir with a small wooden stick, then withdraw the crucible and leave in repose as before, until Mars. Proceed in the same manner with the other metals, as indicated in the table, until all are fused and amalgamated together. If Venus is the ruling planet of the birth, initiate the work with copper and proceed in the following order: Venus, Mercury, Sun, Moon, and, as above, starting from Saturn, the numbering is done through Jupiter and through Mars up to Venus, and all those enumerated only repeat if we begin always by the Lord, by the complexion, and by the nativity. Only Mercury, when Lord of the nativity, is always the last, because his metal does not resist the fire, but scatters around the vapors. Therefore he is the last, even being in his time. The 7 metals being fused together, as we said above, have ready 2 iron plates. Take, then, an iron wire and model it to the size of the mirror so that, placed between the two iron plates, the mirror remains pressed in them, exactly according to a just measure. The orifice for the introduction of the casting must be narrow in the upper part and similar to the neck of a bottle, as is seen here to the side. Before the casting, thou shalt heat the iron plates, greasing them so that the metals do not adhere and the mirror becomes perfectly polished and clear. All this done, one must always observe the propitious time. If the Lord of the Nativity is found in the first houses of heaven, the moon in the 10th degree of the house of the Lord of the Nativity, and there is no evil aspect, such as the square, the trine, or the opposition, then one finds also in the form, in the name of the Lord, the metals that were amalgamated together in the crucible. The first mirror is that in which we must see reflected all things, men, images, buildings, animals in body and in substance. The casting must take place at the exact moment the moon reaches the 10th degree, regardless of whether it is night or day. Remove afterwards the mirror from the mold and store it. Collect the residues and chips of the metal in a clay vessel, and, when the Lord of the Nativity enters into conjunction with the moon, melt it again, leave it in the crucible, and prepare the mold. The casting of the second mirror must be done when the Lord of the Nativity is in the 10th celestial house, that is, in the mid-heaven and at the zenith. At this moment, the moon must be found in the second house or sign of the planet that is the Lord of the Nativity, and, as before it was in the 10th degree of Capricorn, it must be in the 10th degree of Aquarius. If Saturn presided over the birth, it would have two abodes, Capricorn and Aquarius. If the birth were presided over by the sun or the moon, they would have at least one house, Leo for the sun and Cancer for the moon. Thus, the three mirrors must be cast if the moon falls in the 10th degree of Cancer. If the mirror is prepared in the indicated manner, one may, by means of it, know all speeches, words, and songs past, adding the days, the time, and the hours in which these events occurred. Next, the metals are melted again at the moment of a direct conjunction comprising the ruler of the birth, or, then, when the moon is in conjunction with another planet. The obtained mirror is kept apart, and the mold receives it again, as was declared previously. Provided the planet enters houses 7 to 12, it is above the earth. Furthermore, if the moon is in the 18th sign or house, the planet in the 10th degree, and no evil aspect is verified, one proceeds, then, to the fusion of the third mirror. It will reflect all things written, drawn, and painted, in letters and in books, and summarily all hidden things that live and were made for living beings. If other metal remains, it can be employed as one wishes. The mirrors must be kept in numerical order. 1, 2, 3. Besides this, they are burnished and polished with stone, so that they become perfectly smooth, in order to avoid any roughness removing the sharpness of the vision. The operation must be done when the sun enters the sign and the house of the Lord of the Nativity. This done, they must not be placed one upon the other, but separately. The polishing shall be done at the indicated time, without taking into account that the mirrors were not cast together, for this brings no inconvenience whatsoever, it being necessary, however, that one proceeds with speed. It is necessary to burnish them as soon as it is the new moon. One places, then, a little powder on a piece of soft wood and, with it, rubs the first mirror delicately until making it clean and bright. In the successive new moons, the second and third mirrors shall be burnished. The three mirrors must be separated one from the other. When the Lord of the Nativity is in the fourth house, that is, in the house of all that is hidden and secret, if the sun and the moon are found by this time in the house of the Lord of the Nativity, and the conjunction of two benign planets is produced, the three mirrors must be immersed in pure running spring water, so that they find themselves within the pure element, having to remain there for about 2 hours, that is, until the end of the conjunction, to be afterwards withdrawn and stored, wrapped in a piece of pure linen. This royal instrument can be finished within 13 months, if the work is started at the time established for each operation. It can be done every year. There are, however, years more favorable and others less favorable, especially when the Lord presiding over the birth dominates the year or presides over the part of fortune. Chapter 6. Of the composition of metals. No one can deny that the composition of metals operates wonderful things in the supernatural spheres. Moreover, this can be proven with many arguments which we shall demonstrate further on more clearly. In fact, if we join, in the just proportions and at the propitious time, the 7 metals and melt them together, we shall obtain an alloy that will have within itself, latent, the natural virtues of each of the 7 metals, and which are found in a single metal called electrum. In truth, electrum not only gathers the natural virtues of the 7 metals, but it receives also other supernatural ones, attributed to them by God and by nature, which do not exist except by being natural. It is notable that gold, the most noble of metals, the most useful and excellent, with its various species, cures leprosy. Copper and mercury contribute to the cicatrization of sores and external wounds. Likewise, all other metals possess their peculiar strength, but here we shall limit ourselves only to speaking of their virtues. However, this indissoluble and unaltered metallic essence, if used in medicine, will not be so without harm. In order for them to exercise their curative virtue, it is necessary to strip the metals of the metallic state and, under another aspect, transform them into their arcana, such as oils, balsams, quintessences, tinctures, calcinates, and the like, to be afterwards administered to the patient. Without this preparation, with their endowments only supernatural, they cannot bring any aid, as does our electrum, which is composed and gathered together according to the course of heaven, as we shall indicate further on. Therefore, it is not undeservedly that we lavish praises upon our electrum. In fact, its virtue is great, rather magnificent. I deem it now necessary to describe the powers and faculties of electrum and, omitting the manipulation of pure metals, we propose to illustrate exclusively the former. No metal can be compared to electrum, and this is clearer than the light of the sun. For example, if we prepare, with the due rule, a cup or a plate with this electrum, poison cannot be administered to anyone nor harm caused by benefit or enchantment. It is a fact that electrum nourishes an extraordinary sympathy for man. The 7 superior planets cooperate to such a point that, thanks to a singular understanding and agreement, when one perspires it leaves the other stained merely by the touch of the hand of man. Therefore, the ancients attributed very many qualities to our electrum, and with it prepared not a few vessels to eat or drink in, which, also in our century, are frequently discovered and extracted from the subsoil where they had been hidden. Formerly, certain objects were fashioned with electrum, such as rings, bracelets, medals, sigils, images, figures, bells, mirrors, coins, etc., some of which were silvered and gilded externally so as not to betray the secret of the composition. But such custom was lost in the course of time, and the matter passed into indifference and oblivion. In order that this great mystery of nature and the very omnipotent superiority of God should not remain, in these latter times, longer mute, and might be publicly known and reproduced to the light, I could not prevent my divulging science from describing and making public the domain of these things, which the obscurantism of the sophists kept in secret and in darkness for a long time. It does not seem opportune to me, however, to reveal here the quality of the forces and virtues of our electrum, because, if I did so, the sophist would calumniate our work, the ignorant would attack it, the poor of spirit would laugh at it, the perfidious and the impious would abuse it. Before them, the safest defense is silence. Even so, I cannot fail to mention the wonderful virtues of our electrum, whose manifestations our eyes have seen and, in the name of truth, we can testify to and make known. Electrum rings prevent, in those who wear them, spasmodic convulsions, paralyses, apoplectic attacks, and epileptic crises. If we place a ring of this metal on the ring finger of the epileptic, he will calm down and be in a condition to rise. We have also conducted experiments showing that if any disease is in the incubation phase in any person wearing the ring on the ring finger, the latter, by reason of the metal's great sympathy, will become stained and deformed, as we have said and demonstrated in the Book of Sympathies. It is good to know, moreover, that our electrum defends us from evil spirits and encloses the faculty of celestial operations and the influences of the 7 planets. For this reason, the ancient Persian and Chaldean Magi witnessed and revealed its full power. If I wished to detail its wonders, I would have to write the most prodigious of chronicles, which I refrain from doing so as not to be branded by the sophists as a very great and supreme magus and sorcerer. However, I cannot fail to reveal a great miracle wrought by a necromancer from Spain and witnessed by me. He possessed a small bell weighing less than 2 pounds which, every time he shook it, could evoke and make appear specters and numerous and varied spirits. If he wrote some words and characters on the inner part of the bell and agitated it, causing it to tinkle, a spirit of whatever form he desired would immediately appear. It also attracted or repelled numerous other visions of phantoms, especially of human or animal form. Such wonderful things I saw realized. At each new apparition, however, he changed the words and characters, but he never revealed the secret of either to me. Nevertheless, I examined the phenomenon thoroughly, reflected, and finally discovered the enigma, which I shall dissimulate in these pages. Observe that the greater virtue resided in the little bell rather than in the words, and certainly it was entirely made of electrum. Virgil's bell, the sound of which terrorized adulterers of both sexes who surrendered themselves to King Arthur's court, must have been of this metal, and it disturbed them so much that they fell from the bridge and plunged into the waters, as if scourged by the glare. This is not legend, but rather a truth deserving of a chronicle. It is not, therefore, unworthy of credence, given the possibility of such things. If visible man can compel another man to obey his orders with merely the sound of his voice, even if employing a simple word or a sound without any signification, without the employment of arms and without using violence, and obtain an equal result, this becomes much easier for invisible man, who can dominate the visible and the invisible at one and the same time, not only with the word but also with the thought of the word. The fact is that everything that is below obeys that which is above and is subject to it. And is invisible man anything other than the star itself nested invisibly in the human soul and thought, which appears and manifests itself by means of his imagination? And if the star of man can exist and be guided by the Olympic spirit to act upon others, it can equally exist in metals and produce expressions apt to exalt its nature, and this by virtue of the power of the stars, as we have taught in preceding books. An example of this is given to us by gold and mercury. Indeed, if these two metals are composed and united when the Sun and Mercury are in conjunction, especially if the Sun dominates Mercury, they may soon and easily be fixed together in such a manner as to transform the tincture into mercury. And this is a great secret of nature. Equally and without any conjunction, gold and silver may be composed and united together in the following manner. Let the gold be kept over vulgar mercury, which, under the aspect of vapors, will rise entirely to the gold, rendering it white, fragile, and fusible like wax. Silver can also be worked in this manner. We are wont to call this product the magnesia of the philosophers, for to discover it, philosophers such as Thomas Aquinas and Rupesciza, together with their followers, worked fiercely but in vain. And this is a very striking and singular secret. Mercury, thanks to the action of fire, amalgamates with difficult-to-fuse metals, silver, copper, iron, steel, to be melted together and strained more easily. In this manner, many tinctures and elixirs are prepared, as we have taught more diffusely in the book on the transformation of metals. It is necessary to bear in mind that just as vulgar mercury calcines metals when, in any way, they are reached by its vapor, making them follow its own nature, so too do metals, with the vapor emanating from them, coagulate mercury. In fact, we have also experienced that mercury possesses a great heat internally, and that it coagulates only under the action of intense cold, while in fire and in fusion it spreads completely and flees from the metals like smoke. Effectively, it does not tolerate fire nor heat, and evaporates from the metals. Of this genus is the arsenic of the metals, which, similar to the spirit, ascends from liquefied metals. It is necessary to know, furthermore, that mercury is the metallic spirit and, like the spirit, is more than the body. Thus, mercury is greater than the other metals. And as the spirit penetrates through walls, mercury penetrates into all metals. In such a way does it exercise an admirable action upon the metals, which we do not explain here entirely, in order to do so in other pages. We ourselves have experimented and seen that mercury sublimated out of a calcined metal, whatever it may be, as, for example, cinnabar, a calcined metal led back to its primitive state and made more fusible with a little lead, transforms into gold, silver, copper, iron, steel, and will be fusible like wax, or will liquefy in the sun like snow or ice, and finally, after a certain assimilation, will return to the state of mercury. We make mention of this in the book of the resurrection of natural things, in which we treat of the mercury of metals. In this manner is prepared the mercury of gold, the mercury of silver, the mercury of iron, the mercury of tin, the mercury of lead, etc. Arnold, Aristotle, and all the philosophers narrate many things to us on the subject, but rarely, not to say never, have they seen such facts produced. This is considered a most high and noble arcanum of nature, which it is necessary to silence carefully and not place temerariously into the hands of my adversaries, whom I consider unworthy. Could a gem or a pearl satisfy a duck? She ignores its value, giving preference to a turnip. Likewise the spirit of the sophists who, for identical reasons, are not worthy of knowing such arcana. One must not cast pearls before swine nor sacred objects to dogs, which is expressly forbidden by God. But let us return to our electrum, of which we had already begun to speak. It is composed and worked according to the movement of the heaven and the conjunction of Saturn and Mercury, at the beginning of which, so that there be no interruption, all instruments and material must be ready. Fire, crucible, pure lead reduced to very fine sheets and to grains. Upon the commencement of the conjunction, a small quantity of lead is melted, so that the mercury poured over the lead does not evaporate. At the first instant of the conjunction, the crucible is removed from the fire with the molten metal, and the mercury is poured into it. Let everything cool together and now await the conjunction of Jupiter with Saturn and with Mercury. After everything is ready in advance, as we have said, the two metals, pure English tin and lead, mixed with mercury, are melted separately and carefully in a special vessel. We thus have, in a single mass, the three most fusible metals which first need to be melted. Another conjunction is awaited between some of the following planets: Sun, Moon, Venus, and Mars, or between Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter. They are again gathered and melted separately, then mixed at the exact moment of the conjunction and set aside. One proceeds likewise with all other metals until all seven are melted and gathered into a single metal, according to the conjunction required by the respective planets. And we shall have obtained electrum. This being understood, let us close this book. Chapter 7. Of Planetary Metals. It is well known that the metals referring to the planets, if crafted and worn at the due hour and time, are bearers of great virtues. In no way could one deny the great power of the superior stars and the celestial influences over perishable and mortal things. And if the superior stars and planets can moderate, direct, and compel at their pleasure the animal man, although made in the image of God and endowed with life and reason, even better will they be able to govern lesser things, such as metals, stones, and images, in which they are engraved or which they occupy with all their virtues, efficacy, and strength according to their property, as if penetrating into them with all their substances, exactly as they occupy the firmament. And man has the possibility of inducing them into any mediator, be it metal, stone, image, or other similar object, so that they may operate effectively. Note, however, that the strength of the seven planets is no greater than that which they possess in their respective metals, or rather the Sun in gold, the Moon in silver, Venus in copper, Jupiter in tin, Mercury in hydrargyrum, Mars in iron, Saturn in lead. We shall gather, hereafter, their sigils, teaching how to prepare them conveniently, each according to the metal that corresponds to it. Sigil of Saturn. This sigil shall be made of pure and fine lead from Vilic, a city in Corinthia, drawing within its circumference a square, divided into 3 columns, in each of which numbers will be engraved that give the total 15, as seen in the illustration. On the reverse, the image of the planet is engraved. An old bearded man, with a scythe making a motion to turn the earth. Upon his head, a star above which the word Saturn is written. To coin this sigil, one must take care to prepare double punches, in order to be able to imprint in a press, as is done with coins, with the aim of finishing the work as quickly as possible. Wait, therefore, for the day of Saturn, when the moon enters the first degree of Taurus or Capricorn and Saturn has a good and benign course. One then melts the sigil, coins it by means of the 2 punches, and afterwards keeps it wrapped in a black silk cloth that has never been used. This sigil is useful to pregnant women who carry it with them, for it eliminates all difficulty in childbirth. Furthermore, it increases and multiplies everything to which it is applied. Also, if a knight puts it in his left gaiter, no harm shall befall his horse. However, if the sigil is made when Saturn is retrograde on the day and hour of Saturn, it will impede the success of any enterprise, and, if put in contact with someone, this person will lose their strength and die. And in time of war, if it is buried in a place where there are soldiers, they will break camp, withdrawing. Sigil of Jupiter. This sigil must be made of pure English tin. On one of the faces, it will have a square multiplied by a quaternary number, each line of which must form the number 34, as we see here. On the opposite side, the image of a man in priestly raiment is drawn, reading a book, having a star at his head, where above it the word Jupiter is read. Therefore, on the day of Jupiter, when the moon enters the first degree of Libra and the planet Jupiter is in good aspect, take the punches and engrave the sigil, which shall be wrapped in blue silk and put away. This sigil conciliates and brings benevolence, the affection and favor of all, prolongs the life of the one who wears it, guarantees success in business, and drives away fears and worries. Sigil of Mars. This sigil, coined in excellent and very hard iron from Carinthia, at the right time is also circular in shape. On one of the faces, a square divided into 5 columns is imprinted, in such a manner that each of them forms the total of 65, as seen here below. On the other side, the image of the planet is engraved, an armed soldier having a sword on the right and, on the left, a shield, and upon the head a star and the name Mars. For this sigil, 2 well-tempered punches are required. This done, one awaits the day of the moon when it enters the first degree of Aries or Sagittarius, and the planet is in good motion, place, and benign aspect. One then heats the iron disc so that it may better receive the impression. Afterwards, the sigil is coined and, as soon as it cools, it is kept wrapped in red silk. This sigil confers strength and success in combats and competitions. Anyone who wears it coming out victorious, without any wound. If the bearer of the sigil is hidden in a castle or some fortress, the besiegers will end up desisting from their intent. So great is the power conferred by the planet to the individual they intend to capture. If, however, the sigil is prepared when Mars is retrograde, and with a hot, bad, and unhappy aspect, the opposite will happen, stirring up wars, discords, and envies, wherever it may be. Sigil of the Sun. It is executed with gold from Arabia or Hungary, of excellent quality and very choice. On one of the faces, a square divided into 6 columns is imprinted so that, the numbers contained in each of them being added, result in the total 111, as represented below. Incidentally, it is necessary to know that the secret and hidden numbers in any sigil, whatever it may be, represent the number of all the other stars dependent on the same planet and attributed to it by God, according to what we said in the Book of Stars. The planet is also considered a precursor or primary star, which is why it needs to keep submissive those other stars it governs. On the other side, the image of the planet is coined, represented by a crowned king, seated on a throne, shining with royal majesty, with a scepter in his right hand, the sun over his head, and a lion stretched at his feet. These 2 images are indispensable. Observe, therefore, that on the day of the sun the moon enters the first degree of Leo and, if that planet is in good aspect, engrave the images and keep the sigil wrapped in yellow linen cloth. It is fitting to take care to prepare the die in advance, not only to avoid impediments at the opportune moment but also so that the work may be effected quickly, the coinage having to result concomitantly with the celestial virtues. The celestial impressions and the influences of the stars, obtained separately, must be achieved with the greatest possible speed, just as an arrow or projectile. This sigil conciliates favor and graces with magnates, kings, princes, Caesars, and elevates the man in such a way that he becomes admired by all. Sigil of Venus. This sigil is manufactured with copper, engraving on one of the faces a square divided into 7 columns of 7 small squares, each containing a number the result of the sum of which must be 175, as seen ahead. The other face must reproduce the image of the planet. A woman having at her side a boy armed with a bow and a burning dart. With the left hand, the woman holds a psaltery or any other musical instrument. On her forehead, she bears a star. For this sigil, one prepares, as usual, the 2 punches and engraves on the day of Venus, when the moon is found in the 1st degree of Taurus or Virgo and the planet shows itself favorable. It is kept in green linen cloth. This sigil confers extreme grace, conciliates love, both in men and in women, and drives away hatreds and envies. If an angry enemy takes any drink in which the sigil has been dipped, he will soon become the most faithful friend, seeking to please in everything possible. The sigil also provides excellent musical dispositions and success in that art. Sigil of Mercury. It must be cast with coagulated mercury. No metal that is not ductile can be sculpted. Therefore, mercury not coagulated with our process cannot be cast. A double punch is required, having the numbers on one side and the image on the other, just as was done with the other metals. This sign has on one side a quadrilateral multiplied by 8, forming 8 columns, the result of each being the total 260, as seen below. On the other face, the image of the planet is engraved, that is, an angel with wings on his back and heels, equipped with a staff with 2 coiled serpents, and above his head a star and the word Mercurius. The mercury is coagulated with lead, the only metal most akin to it, and one proceeds in the following manner. Place pure lead into a clay crucible. One must, however, wait until the moon on the day of Mercury, with the planet well aspect, enters the 1st degree of Gemini and Scorpio. Slowly pour an equal quantity of mercury into the mold, which is agitated so that the metal spreads uniformly. Let it cool thoroughly in the mold itself, previously heated in the flame of a candle or a torch, so that the mercury may flow fluidly and rapidly. If in the casting the sign does not detach completely, one may trim it at will. Keep it in a small purple cloth. This sign confers great aptitude and intelligence in philosophy and in all other natural arts. By ingesting a drink in which it has been immersed, one acquires excellent memory, and we are freed from fever. Placed under the head when one sleeps, one may see and gain knowledge of that which one asked God to grant us to see and know. Sign of the moon. It is executed with pure silver. The square is multiplied by 9, that is, 9 columns are made, so that each of them produces the total 369, as seen below. On the opposite side appears the image of the planet represented by a woman dressed in an ample, loose tunic, holding a half-moon in her right hand. She stands upon another half-moon. Upon her head she bears a star surmounted by the name Moon. The 2 punches are required for the making of this sign, just as was done previously. It is engraved on the day of the moon when she, with a benign course, enters the 1st degree of Capricorn or Virgo. It is preserved in a small white cloth. This sign averts many evils. It is also useful to pilgrims and farmers, defending them from thieves and captors. It also possesses the property of keeping intact and making last longer any object with which it is in contact. End of the book, the 7th Supreme Book of Magical Teachings.